Welcome to All Grown Up Now, Tales of a Checkered Past. I'm Kenneth D. King, podcasting from my studio near Union Square in New York City. This podcast is an evolution of the tale, All Grown Up Now, A Friendship in 3 Acts. This is Season 2, and it's called Tales of a Checkered Past. It's a collection of short stories from my salad days on up to the present. In each podcast, another self-contained story will be presented. These podcasts will be broadcast bi-weekly, so you get 2 a month. Enjoy. I call episode 73 An Answered Prayer. This episode relates a time in my life that runs parallel to the story of kidnapping my friend Mark. It's interesting to me how different, seemingly self-contained stories in life can actually occur simultaneously. This is one of them. In April of 1995, I took a trip to Paris. The trip involved a group. Myself, along with one customer from Los Angeles, who I'll call Meg, plus 2 of her friends who were owners of a fancy yarn shop that Meg spent thousands of dollars in. I'll refer to them as the ladies. Also on that trip was a friend of mine from Wisconsin, Pam. It was during this trip that I had an epiphany that influenced my creative life. It inspired an entire body of work. But first, a little background information. About a year before this trip, I got invited to a fancy party in San Francisco. It was at the home of Dodie Rosecrans. She was San Francisco's answer to Deanna Vreeland. Dodie was a fashionista of the first order, always supporting the most avant of the avant-garde. This party was for the head of John Galliano's workroom in Paris, as it seems he was a San Francisco boy and knew Dodie very well. Galliano was getting some press and attention. Dodie had financed his first collection in Paris the year before. This collection, which was featured in Vanity Fair, cemented my regard for his work. As it was, I knew him from Women's Wear Daily. He got on my radar with one sentence from an article on London fashion, which read, "The most beautifully finished clothes in London are at Galliano." That did it for me. I paid attention from then on. So one day in 1994, I was having lunch with a very glamorous couple, the Denenbergs, who owned an art gallery on Grant Street. I had met them through the curator of costume and textile at the LA County Museum of Art. When I mentioned that I might like to meet Dodie Rosecrans, they both knew her, of course, they kindly wangled me an invitation to this particular party. And that's how I found myself there. I remember Dodie being tiny, but a powerhouse, great style. Since this party was in honor of Galliano's head of the workroom, she entered the room in full regalia, Galliano from head to toe. The exception, I think, were her earrings. While she chatted with me and the others in the room, I studied these remarkable earrings. They were oval pendants, the size of teaspoon bowls. At first, I thought they were Venetian glass. But then I realized these were emeralds. Big emeralds. It made my knees weak. During the party, I met the head of Galliano's workroom, and we had a nice chat. As I remember, his name was Roger. If I got that wrong, sorry. I just remember he was lovely. Eventually, though, the party ended, and that was that. Back to the trip to Paris. I learned an important lesson during that trip. Never travel with your clients. I could do another podcast on all the bad behavior Meg put me through, but that's not the story here. I need to cover just a little of the misbehavior, just to set the scene. At breakfast our first day, I seemed to be the one tasked with being tour director. I decided to take the group to Notre Dame. This is because when I go to Paris, my first task is to light candles at Notre Dame for my parents. I figured that once this was done, we could stop to see Sainte-Chapelle. It was so beautiful. I've heard it described as being on the inside of a jewel. From there, I figured we could decide what everyone else wanted to do. All good, I thought. We got to Notre Dame, and I went off to light candles, assuming the others would just look around. After 10 minutes or so, I returned to the front to find my friend Pam standing there, looking alarmedly at Meg, who had steam coming out of her ears. Oh dear, not good, I thought. "What's up?" I asked as brightly as I could. Meg whirled around, looked at me, and spat. "Well, you just want to go do what you damn well please, while the ladies and I want to go shopping." "Whoa, hold a moment," I said. "I thought we all agreed on this. If you wanted to do something different, why didn't you just say so? Now tell me what you want to do." "No! No!" shrieked Meg. The shrieks echoed through the entire cathedral, drawing lots of stern glances in our direction. "You just go have fun with your friend Pam!" With that, Meg whirled around and stormed out. Poor Pam. It was her first trip to Paris. She looked at me, not knowing what to do. "Well, you heard her," I said. "Let's go have some fun." Which we did. After we had walked around, eaten our fill of crepes with Nutella, and bought sunglasses at Alain Micli, I had an idea. "Pam, I have the address to Galliano's atelier in the Marais. Do you want to go see if we can find it? I met this guy Roger who manages his workroom. Maybe he'll remember me." "Sure," she said. So we set off in search, and early in the afternoon, we found it. It was on the second floor of an old building in the Marais. As we were standing at the foot of the stairs, I suddenly got cold feet. I thought, what am I doing? I can't go in there. Who the hell do I think I am? I started to back up. Right then, I felt the point of an umbrella dig into the small of my back. Then I heard Pam's voice. "Get up those stairs, mister," she said. "I'm behind you. You can't escape." As we walked into the atelier, it was obvious that something was going on. Workmen were bringing things in and out, rolling racks were skittering to and fro. There was all sorts of activity. In the middle of all of this was the man I had met at the party, Roger. Walking over, I reintroduced myself. Quite to my surprise, he actually remembered me. I told him of my admiration for Galliano's work. "Well, you can see there's a lot going on right now," Roger said. "We had the show last night, and John's in London today. I'll tell you what, come back on Monday. The clothes will be back, and we'll have the video of the show. You can see all of it then. How does that sound?" We agreed to meet back there the following Monday at 1 o'clock. For the rest of the afternoon, Pam and I wandered through the streets of Paris. As the sun began to set, we both realized we'd have to go back to the hotel to face the music. I had a feeling that Meg and the ladies would be upset with us. As we entered the hotel lobby, we could see the three of them in the bar, sitting in a circular banquette, getting all liquored up. When Meg spotted us, well, if looks could kill, everyone in sight would have been dead. Pam and I trudged over to their table and sat down. I felt like I was going to the principal's office, even though I hadn't done anything wrong. We all politely chatted about the different activities they had done that day. At one point, Meg pointedly said in this prissy, fake polite voice, "Well, the ladies and I thought of you today. We saw a Galliano jacket in one of the boutiques, but you weren't there. You missed it." Then she looked at me with a satisfied expression. She had told me. "What a coincidence," I said smoothly. "Pam and I were at his atelier today, and he invited the two of us back on Monday to see the clothes from the couture show." Well, kaboom! And as they say, things went from bad to worse. But like I said, that's another story titled "Traveling with Your Clients, a Recipe for Disaster." The following Monday, Pam and I showed up at the appointed time at the appointed place. Roger led us past an enormous Boldini portrait of the Marchesa Casati and into a small room with a video monitor and some tree stumps to sit on. The clothes were hanging across the room, maybe 5 feet away. He turned on the video and left us to watch, which we did. My brain exploded. The clothes were brilliant and obviously from someone who is a master of his craft. As the different outfits scrolled across the screen, we could look across the room to see the real item, just as magical in person as it was in video. All too soon, the video ended and Roger showed us the clothes. Afterwards, he let us out. We both thanked him profusely, trying to act cool and collected. Didn't everyone get a private showing of a Galliano collection? Happens every day. When we got to the street, I was so overwhelmed that I leaned against the building and began to cry. Pam suggested we go across the street to a small cafe, order something, and collect ourselves. We both knew we had seen something significant. I later learned that this was the same collection that got him the job with LVMH. As I sat there drinking my coffee, I tried to figure out just why I had had that particular reaction. A bit more history is in order here. In 1993, I began having trouble with the posh LA store and my agent. I myself felt that I had said what I wanted to say with the particular body work I was doing. I also sensed that my customer wanted something new. The posh LA store, however, didn't see it my way. They wanted my work like I was doing it, but different. Grunge was a thing right then, and they were asking for me to make things like grunge handbags, which I had absolutely no idea how to do. When I would present new ideas, they'd get shot down, and I'd hear, "Kenneth doesn't do that." And my agent was on their side. I finally had to remind her who she was representing, me, not them. I decided to let her go. My big mistake in my career was understanding that everyone has to make money from this transaction, but I lost sight of the fact that it was my creativity that was generating that money. That was my big mistake. So, a couple of weeks before I went to Paris, I had to go down to LA and have a sit-down with the owner of the store. He showed up, smelling a very expensive scotch, and started haranguing me about firing my agent. And then he said it. "And after all we've done for you." At that, I'd had enough. I looked at him and I said, "You haven't been buying my work just because you're a nice guy. You've taken a markup. You've made money." The fireworks looked like the 4th of July. And with that, I was done with them. When that meeting was over, I said to myself, "Keep your dignity. Don't show you're unnerved by all of this." I stood up, head held high, and steadily walked out of the store into my car. After about 2 blocks, I pulled over and had a good cry. As a result, I withdrew from the marketplace. This situation had sucked any joy of creativity out of me. I just felt like, why bother? They won't like it anyway. I call it my time in the wilderness, a creative desert. So this is where I was mentally on that trip to Paris. Creatively dormant, having cut off one main source of income, with no idea of how I would proceed. And then I saw this amazing collection of work from John Galliano. Digesting my reaction over the next few days, I realized that I couldn't be John Galliano. He was the best Galliano out there. But in my own way, with my own thing, I set as my task to be the best Kenneth D. King I could be. I set as my task to come up with work that was mine and work that I could proudly put up next to the work I saw that day in Paris. That was my prayer. A few days after I returned from Paris, I kidnapped my friend Mark. That's a story I've told before because it did eat up a lot of my life. For the next 2 years, my life turned into a Fellini film while I tried helping my friend. But during that time, my refuge was my work. I embarked on a long period of experimentation, fabric manipulation specifically, making samples, not feeling I needed to create actual pieces. During this period, my work was all black. When I line up photos from my archive, you can see it. This had to do partly with the drama that was happening while I was helping Mark, but more importantly, the color black was because I still felt in the dark about where my next step was creatively. The light at the end of the tunnel came in early of 1997. I had an epiphany around some of the fabric manipulation I was experimenting with. Not to be too wordy here, but I figured out how to make a complicated garment with a minimum of seams. This set of techniques I named soufflé. I worked along, and then there came that magical evening, that moment that I knew. I had just finished the first successful soufflé piece. There were some false starts, and I made some pieces that were, in a word, ugly. But then it all came together. That particular evening, I had Katie laying on the CD player as I finished up the first jacket. Once the last stitch was in place and the label was sewn on, I laid it on my work table. This was the first time I just took a long look at that particular piece. I felt a shiver down my back. I've done it, I thought. I've done something that's not been done before. I would proudly put this up against the work I saw in Galliano's atelier. It was an answer to a prayer. Thanks for listening. You can get the audiobook All Grown Up Now on iTunes, Audible, and Amazon, or from my website, allgrownupnow.com. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play. If you have any questions, you can reach me through the website allgrownupnow.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Kenneth D. King, on Facebook at Kenneth D. King Design, or on my main website, kennethdking.com.